Welcome, everybody. We're having some technical difficulties with Chris, but he'll be joining us shortly. He keeps saying, how about now? But I don't see him to where I can bring him in. Bear with us 1 second, and we'll see if we can get this going. So Chris is going to try a different computer. So I'm going to join you here and see how everybody's doing today on this Monday. If you guys have questions for Chris, you can post them up now. Otherwise, hang with us and see what's going on. I'm doing well, Ethan. Golf Unfiltered sees the Yoda impress back there. Nope, this way, right there. I appreciate the compliment, Nick. Yeah, I've actually thought that through and have not worn the same shirt twice on purpose, but that's going to start repeating here. We've got a lot of these coming up, and wanted to kind of keep it fresh as long as I can. So if you have questions for Mizuno, like I said, post them along the side here. Chris is going to be joining us shortly. You know, anybody who's been with our live chat, let me try that again. Anybody who's been in our live chats with Chris knows he's an open book, and he will answer everything as honestly and openly as he can. There is no Baby Yoda Canadan. Sorry about that. I haven't done that one. Maybe I could 3D print that one up. But up above on that bookshelf over in the back left there, this side, there is a Darth Vader and a minion. Ethan, to answer your question, I use the Jabra Elite 75T. Both Golfer Gal and I have that system, and we like it a lot. I appreciate everybody joining us and having a little bit of patience as Chris had some technical difficulties from the iPad. He's switching to a laptop now, and we're going to get into it. They have a lot of new gear this year with the MP line, as well as the metalwoods and the putters and everything else. I see him dropped into the green room here. I'm going to have him join us. Chris, how are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much.
Right.
Golf Unfiltered, yes, that is a Shawshank Redemption picture in the background. I appreciate you noticing. Which driver head on the back is the ST200X. There's a left-handed model on top of the Ms. Pac-Man machine, and that is an ST200. That is for a contest winner. But I'll stop answering your questions because you're not here to see me. You're here to see Chris, who's got a dartboard in his back, and we have a ton of questions for him. The first one, I'm just going to splash this up on the screen right away.
How good am I at darts? I won't say I'm great, but I'm getting there. So
getting there.
We have a rep from Canada who's amazing, who, like, he's in Canada. What are you going to do all day? So he just throws darts and drinks beer. So it's awesome.
You know, we're 2 minutes in. He's thrown a whole country under the bus. I love it. But I have some questions for you before we jump right in, because there's some tech talk that we got some serious questions on. We know you're the guy to answer them, and then we're going to have a whole lot of fun because there's a whole lot of questions, including a speed round that you've got to get through, and it's going to be quite interesting. The first is, I was speaking to an R&D person who said we were talking about the biggest innovations in iron design over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And he said the biggest, and it's not even debatable, is the ability to use CAD. And I wanted to get your take on that.
I think that's a great answer. It's, you know, automatically you're going to start thinking of manufacturing things. You're going to start thinking of, you know, materials and all that stuff. But what CAD allows us to do to make a product just better in every single way It makes us quicker at making product. It makes us understand how it's going to perform. I think CAD is unbelievable in terms of you don't have, I mean, prototyping now, we kind of know what it's going to do before we even make anything, because we can do so many simulations in the CAD world. Center of gravity is going to be perfect. We're going to know where the MOI, how the MOI is going to look. We're going to be able to simulate CORs, ball speeds, impact, sound, everything. So I think I completely agree with that answer.
So it's funny, you just went through a whole bunch of acronyms there, and it reminded me of a movie years ago that I'm probably the only person that's ever seen, called Renaissance Man, with Danny DeVito, when he pulls onto the Army lot and they were like, you make a left at the DOJ and all this, and he had no idea, and by the end he was reciting the same thing. What do you say to the person who, and I'll call them a forum member, because these people, I would say, are the educated golfer who dives deep into the equipment, who says iron design hasn't changed for 20 years. In fact, it was better then because they were smaller and easier to square up. Other than saying they're just incorrect, what do you say to that person? Because you have a better way of words than I do.
I mean, I think even in the most basic iron, it's gotten better. And what I mean is, like, obviously you can talk about ball speed and distance and stuff like that, and some of the innovations. I think there's no denying you can get more ball speed out of a oversized game improvement iron now than you used to be able to. So there's I don't think there's any debate there. But even if you were to look at like the most simple design, let's talk about just an absolute muscle back. A muscle back in the day,
made a few of those,
versus a muscle back today. What CAD has allowed us to do is precisely control every dimension and every measurement, every CG location. I'll go with acronyms again. Every bit of the design is more fine-tuned. So if you went back, call it 50 years, or not even that, go back 20 years in terms of how a muscle back was made, it would start with almost like a clay shape that craftsmen would make, and then make molds out of that. From there, there's expertise from the craftsman and knowing about where the center of gravity is, about what the MOI is going to be. But now we know exactly. So I think to the idea that nothing has improved, or that irons have kind of, become very stale or haven't improved, I completely disagree with that notion.
When you see different companies launch clubs, or Mizuno launch clubs, what are the one thing, because, marketing is marketing. It's precision, it's distance, it's feel. What is the one thing that you think is overlooked, not in the company message, but by the golfer who is the knowledgeable golfer, that says, is it sole design? Is it center of gravity location? Is it squaring the glove? What is overlooked by them?
Do you mean that just in terms of the entire bag, or in irons, or anything?
No, we'll stick with irons right now.
Okay, we'll stick with irons. I think sole design is huge. Sole design is going to dictate a lot of how consistently you impact. How, when we work with tour players, if it doesn't enter and exit the turf exactly how they want, that club is out. So I think that's overlooked a lot. And I think one of the other things that's overlooked, I think it's less overlooked than it used to be, but set makeup, I think, is so vital. It's so critical in terms of how you put your set together and where you start needing to make different breaks. So, you look at the modern player, just a random guy, is probably playing a game improvement iron and then a blade type wedge, because that's what really sells. Most people can play a blade type wedge. Most people can probably play a blade type 9 iron, 8 iron, 7 iron. And then it's understanding through the fitting process where you need help in what area. So where you might start needing more center of gravity depth, where you might start needing a little bit of lower center of gravity, where you might start needing lofts to actually flow a little bit different. So to me, it's a lot of set progression, and set makeup is one of the big things that's overlooked.
We're going to jump into some questions because they are flying in fast and furious, and then we'll come back to some interesting chatter. The first is right on the screen here.
Your darts. No, my super speed training is, it's phenomenal. I'm swinging faster for sure, and my dart motion, it's not It's not a quick one. It's a little lobby. Like it's probably not the prettiest throw. I need to get.
Do you have game improvement darts?
I probably need them. Honestly, I have the off the rack ones that come with the board. So
oh my god, are those made for?
They might be made for. That's pretty sad.
Another question here that I was actually going to ask you this myself.
Ooh, yeah. The Falcons uniform.
There's a correct answer.
I know what you're gonna say is a correct answer. I am very partial to the new logo versus the old logo. I know there was a big push to go back to the old logo. But the Falcon looks so stagnant. Like it was just a very, I don't know.
He looks dead.
He looked dead. The new one is more aggressive. It's faster. To me, my favorite ones that they've worn recently are the Color Rush ones, when it was red on red with the black helmet. So
true story. The Jacksonville Jaguars, when they do their Color Rush, it looks like somebody peeing that hasn't had any water in 2 days.
I do not doubt that.
So I knew this question was coming, so I had to splash it up on the screen.
Yep.
Did you get a set of those personally?
Yes. Yeah. There were a couple of sets at the PGA show, and one of those somehow found its way into my car. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it did. So I don't have the finished, like with the custom ferrules, with the new box, the custom grips and all that, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to build them up to my specs anyway. But so we sold out all of them almost immediately. We held back 5 sets. And of those 5 sets, I know Keith Mitchell did an unboxing of one just the other day on Instagram. Luke's got one on his way to him. I'm trying to think where the other couple are. I know there's 1 or 2
Jeff
put aside.
Social media.
Jeff's got. I think he took one also.
Okay, good.
But there's there is a set to be given away at some point. I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen. That's a Jeff question. He's going to decide.
I just want to tell you that to the people following along, no, we are not going to give that set away.
Unfortunately, not there.
Mizuno's going to give that set away, and we will make sure we let everybody know about it. Just a quick comment from Morgan. She said if that was in our house, we'd have a lot of holes in the wall.
Nice.
To your answer on the Falcons.
ATL wins worst jersey revamp. I saw the Rams logo, and it's pretty atrocious.
You can't unsee that either.
You can't unsee that. So
I remember a few years ago there was a golf company that rhymes with PXG, and they released a prototype driver called Darkness, and on it had 2 of those same symbols that you can't unsee, and that was not good. So I have a couple questions we got to ask you as far as that we got when we said we were having you on, that we got hundreds of questions. The first is, and you've had it every time we've ever done something, the Mizzy Blue driver.
Yes.
Describe the conversations in your office when you bring it up every single time, because I know you do.
So yeah, I've always been one of the strongest proponents for having the blue driver. As I've transitioned into a role where the sales number is a little bit more on me than it used to be, I won't say my ideas have changed, but my understanding of the not blue has grown. So, I mean, where it came from and the origin of it, we had blue drivers going back to like the Blue Fire, the Blue Rage years ago, which were great drivers, very expensive. We went away from that for a very long time. And then ultimately we got into a path where Mizuno's driver market share and how we sold drivers to the market is we would buy X number and then we'd immediately sell them out. So, whether we'd hold on to a couple to make custom, but overall most of them were shipped right off the bat, and it was just how many can you buy, and then we're going to sell those, and then it's done. So it was never a play to try to gain market share because it was always just X amount. So with that being said, if you're only going to sell that amount, let's make it as Mizuno as possible. So let's blue it out. And that's where that came from, is the blue. And I love like the matte blue that was on the JP.
That was my favorite one. Was that the 800?
It was the 900. The 800 was a
900.
gloss blue, and then the 900
Yeah.
had the matte blue. I agree. I thought that was beautiful looking. So then with the ST line, the idea was, how can we start to grow market share? And part of market share was, in order to get our retailers to bring more in, retailers are hesitant to bring in something like that, a blue driver, just because right off the bat, it's an instant reason to potentially not pick it up. So what we did is we made the shift to black. There's still some blue on it, not nearly as much, but it's now turning into, how can we bling up the sole and make it very Mizuno'd out, but give you something very traditional at a dress. That being said,
do you think there's a little bit of a catch-22 at the same time, though, is casual golfer walks into fill-in-the-blank golf store and sees a sea of heads that look exactly the same. Isn't there something that says, unless they did their research, they're going to the one that they see the most often on TV?
Yes, I completely agree with you. And that was my argument all along, was for everybody who says, oh, well, I'm turned off by that, there might be somebody who says, well, I hadn't seen that. And that's something I can't get from one of the big guys. Because you're right, the driver market there's 3, maybe a 4th creeping into the big guys in the driver world.
And that's 60% of the sales.
Absolutely. So it's, how can you take advantage of some of those other bits of the sale? So yeah, I totally agree with you that it was something different that gave us an option to potentially appeal to somebody else.
So quick question from somebody here. We've done it for everybody who's come on. Mm-hmm. What's in the bag?
So in the bag, I have an ST200 driver, the standard one.
It'd be weird if you'd said like a 190, you know?
But okay, on my fairway woods, I have the 190s. I honestly, I'm not a tinkerer. Like, I'm not somebody who's always looking to churn out the new stuff in the bag, which is good and bad. As somebody who's promoting the brand and promoting all the new stuff, you want to have the newest, latest, and greatest. But also, I'm not somebody who, I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to, get fit by very, very good fitters. And with that being said, my clubs do what I want them to do. So I'm not looking.
So even if it were to give you more distance, let's say, that's not necessarily something you're looking for. Basically, you just said you're an internet golfer. I get it.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. So one ST200 in the driver, 190 in the 3-wood and the 5-wood. But the funny story is the 5-wood went into the bag with the 190 after a hit test we did of hit testing 5-woods of the 200. And the 200 5-wood was so good, I was like, you know what? I've never really played a 5-wood, and those weren't available yet, so it was just a prototype. So I went and built the 190. So that's how a 5-wood ended in the bag, is because the ST200 was awesome. On the iron side, JPX 919. On the 9-iron through 5-iron. On the 4 and 3, I actually have the old MPH5, which was a great iron, but I've got a whole bunch of shafts and ferrules and grips set up to be built right now with HMBs. So I haven't done it yet, but those are basically waiting for manufacturing to reopen. Same thing with wedges. I still have T7 wedges, but I've got T20.
Oh, this is depressing.
I know, right?
It is.
I have T20 wedges sitting on my desk ready to be built up also. I have an M-Craft 2 putter that's actually sitting right over there that I just paint filled black and gold. And then on the golf ball side, I played the RB Tour X all year. And recently I've been testing out a couple prototype ones that we're working on. So right now I've been playing a prototype ball for the last couple rounds, which technically means when I shot low with the raised cups, I can't post it because it's an illegal golf ball.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another question here is, we want to hear about Canadian wants to hear about the shoes.
I still have, and it's funny he asked that because he knows the shoes I like. I still have.
Those things are horrible.
The Tour Premiers. They're awesome.
No, you look like a homeless person.
A homeless person on the moon?
A little bit, yeah.
I was looking at some of the new shoes coming out, and they've got this one big spike on the sole that's kind of funky. So I'm not sure about some of those.
This one is just has to be asked because, it's a hair question.
If I have to be honest, My freshman year of college, I went full on Eminem bleach style.
No.
Oh, it was so bad. I never realized how red my skin is until you bleach your hair blonde. And when I did that, I looked in the mirror and it looked like a cherry. Like I guess I just have a reddish hue, if you will. Yes, I absolutely did the bleach. My parents were livid. And and to this day, it's like the top of my eyebrows, I think, are permanently singed. There's a little bit of white right up here. So the guy did a very poor job. It hurt like hell.
We're going to come back to these questions in a second. We got to get through our speed round here. But
Okay.
before that, I mean, did I ruin your life with the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup thing?
It definitely, I have some old friends are now enemies trying to speak about the egg is better. Like, it's just not, I thought it was.
But I mean, they got smaller without telling us they got smaller.
That was messed up. And honestly, it doesn't surprise me. I was in the dark, and now I'm glad I'm not anymore because they're gonna get some spicy emails from me.
So we got a little speed round, nothing to do with golf. You just give us the first sentence that comes to your mind. Best fast food breakfast.
Fast food
has to have a drive-through.
McDonald's hotcakes.
That's not bad. I knew you were going to struggle with some of these food ones.
Yeah.
You're flying to California. You have a choice between first class with one stop or nonstop in the back of the plane and coach. Which way are you going?
I'm a sleeper on the plane regardless of the seat, so I'm going in the back. I just go back there, and I'm asleep before we take off. So.
You're a little guy, too, so, I mean,
yeah,
you can take up a middle seat. So you live in college football heaven down there, or hell, I guess depends on how you look at it. And you have multiple SEC schools in the household.
Correct.
Do you say Roll Tide?
Around her family, I'll kind of say it. I've never volunteered it. Like when somebody's walking by, like I know you're supposed to say it if you see somebody with the logo on, but I've never done that.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. It's like Auburn does the same thing. They've got a War Eagle that you're supposed to just randomly say to folks.
Yeah, none of it makes any sense, but it's an interesting state. So I'm not going to insult them like you did the country of Canada, but it is what it is.
Can I tell
for those following?
Remind me to get back to a Canada story when I get back.
Okay, I'm even making a note. For those following that don't know, Chris is a vegetarian, has been basically his whole life. What is the one meat dish that you look at and you're like, man, I really want to try that at some point?
There's not one. I'm
going to ruin you.
Everything looks not good. So even you go to those places where they're vegetarian places, but they make them here's our faux fried chicken. I don't want that. That's not a thing. So
you're not into faking it. You don't want to have a double cheeseburger of tofu, bean curd, fake cheese, and fake bacon.
Correct. If they're I don't get the Impossible Burger. If it tastes like meat, that's not why I'm wanting it. I want a black bean burger I'm great with, but I don't want an Impossible Burger.
Okay. Now, the ultimate question here, because you're a Falcons fan again, is better Falcon, Andre Rison or Primetime? And there's definitely a correct answer.
Yeah, the correct answer is Andre Rison.
Oh, my God.
I was at the game when Andre Rison grabbed Dion by the face mask when he was a Niner and started railing on him. It was amazing. The whole place went up.
Are you sure he wasn't saying, go put the fire out at my house?
Which is at Country Club of the South, right next to our text center. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we're going to shift back to your Canada story.
Okay. My first, and I don't mean to lay on Canada. I love Canada. It's one of my favorite places.
You do go there a lot.
I do go there a lot. But one of the funniest things I ever saw was my very first trip to Japan. It was 2006. I had never traveled overseas. I had been to Canada. I had been to Mexico, but I'd never been overseas. I land in Tokyo, and there's a little kid at baggage claim, a little Japanese kid wearing a shirt that has a picture of Canada on it. And I'm sure this kid speaks no English. And the shirt just said, Canada, they built a country and nobody came. and I just thought it was so funny because it's like, this kid has no idea what his shirt says, but it made me laugh.
That is fantastic. I'm going to go back to a couple more questions here, none of which really have much to do with anything. But no, there were a couple of good ones. Somebody said, can you explain ST200? Can you break it down? And I think really what I'm going to evolve that question to is, you have multiple models. Which one is right for who?
Yeah, so the addition of the third model in the ST200 line allowed each one to get a little bit more unique. So to describe the line, they all feature some shared technologies. They all feature the beta titanium face. They all feature the composite crown. They all feature the compacted wave sole. But what's unique is what we did with all the discretionary weight is what separates the three. So the ST200G is the lowest spinning driver we've ever made, and arguably I'd put it up against anybody. It's the lowest we've ever tested in terms of spin. So if you're somebody who's looking to kill spin, the ST200G is the answer there. The two
I think he's talking to Canadan.
Yes, exactly. The two tungsten weight slid all the way up are super low spin. The standard ST200, it's designed to be more of that broad appeal one. So it's that meat of the bell curve, ultra forgiving, but still low spin. So all the extra mass in that was used to increase the overall moment of inertia. And then the ST200X is more of a heel-weighted draw bias club. So the extra weight there we use to bring the center of gravity closer to the shaft axis so that it turns over, that face closes a lot easier, and to take that right side out of play. So overall, it's three models designed really for three different playing types. So if you want to take the right side out, you pick the X. If you want to knock down spin, you take the G. And if you want that broad appeal, straight distance, it's the standard ST200.
Which is the one you're playing.
Which is the one I'm playing, correct.
So I'm going to jump into another question, but there are a ton of comments saying, please show off your, quote, Saints putter, even though they don't realize it's Vanderbilt. But so at some point on social media, if you're not following, it's at Vosh68. Follow. Yeah. I'm sure he's going to show this thing off. Another question for you, which is a really good one because this is a hot topic again, it seems.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Mizuno's are being faked and counterfeited, but the Chinese government's actually done a really good job of dialing it back a good amount. So if you were to go back 7-8 years ago, there was a ton of counterfeit out there. It's not nearly as bad because a lot of those counterfeit houses have been shut down. So the biggest thing I always say is if a deal looks too good to be true, 99% of the time it is. We are very, I'd say us being Untitled are the strictest with our retailers in terms of what stuff is sold for, particularly online and who can sell it online. So when you see deals online, odds are it's something not right. And one thing I'll say to point at that I always look at is like the telltale sign of a fake on a Mizuno iron. On a forging, we can get really precise on the shaping. So like you get really crisp corners on like on the Mizuno logo in particular, where the M, where like the triangle in the M hits the legs of the M. Right. The casting radius is that because all the counterfeits are cast, can't get that precise. So you'll see some disconnect in the logos. So typically the logos are where you can see the real difference.
One of the things that has come up quite a bit over today and recently is a conversation about forging, and I'm still waiting for my response on if butter is cast, why it's often used. But here's another question to relate it back to golf. Driver faces are forged a lot. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons for that is the durability, and it's firmer. Mm-hmm. Why all of a sudden does forging with an iron mean it's softer? Is it a sound thing to you?
Let me think about that for a second rather than just shoot out something. What they say is forged in a driver, it's usually a final strike. Like right. It's a sheet of material and there's a final strike on there. In the casting world, where on on the iron world, we talk mostly about one-piece forgings. When you get the true benefit of a soft feel from a forging, it's when that club vibrates for longer. When you have a single piece, you get a longer duration of vibration. So the vibration happens for longer. On an iron, a forging, there's one piece will vibrate for longer, which equates to more feel, which equates to it feels like the ball stays on the face longer.
Right.
So that's where you get that softness on an iron. On a driver, on a wood, almost always the face is welded on. There's some glued parts on the sole. The adapter now is a completely different part that's screwed on together. So you're never going to get that long duration of vibration from a forging because the whole head is all these disjointed parts that are somehow, attached together. So you're not going to get the true long vibration that you would from an iron. So that's where the feel part comes from, and that's where the difference is on there.
I'm going to come through a couple of these before we make you we take up enough of your time. I know you're not going to answer this one, but you teased it on the THP live chat that we did, that we also have something really cool coming with you guys as part of an experience that if anybody pays attention to calendars over the last decade will realize that it's about this.
Yes. Yeah, there's new stuff coming. It's awesome. Like, wait till you see it in person. Like the 919 stuff is fantastic, and it does great new stuff. Always, we work 2 year cycles because we want to give us an extra year to make sure everything is a significant improvement. So there will be some new stuff coming. It will be later in the year. How late in the year is still TBD with all the COVID stuff in terms of where's inventory looking and what can our retailers take without just absolutely despising us. But we are planning something fun with THP and the JPX line, and it's going to be awesome.
And we should say that, and we're not going to head down the COVID thing right now because we've talked about it till we're blue in the face here.
Yep.
The answer is nobody knows. So we're going to take a couple more fun questions, and then we'll let Chris get to work or exercise or whatever he's doing today on Instagram.
Do blueberry donuts count as fruit? I mean, yeah, absolutely, right? If it's got blueberries in it. Advisor has on driver design. The effect of the weight of a shaft adapter on driver design. So it's become so minimal because these adapter parts have gotten so optimized. There's always been a heavy part in the hosel. So just in terms of having the cylinder to receive the proper amount of shaft to get proper epoxy for durability, there was always, call it 5-6 grams locked in the hosel to begin with. When the first weighted adapters or shaft adapters, adjustable adapters started coming out, they lived in the 9-10 gram range. So there was a bit of sacrifice, meaning that extra mass was being pulled towards the heel side. As you've seen iterations come and go, each one is getting more optimal. They're getting thinned out. The walls are thinner. The materials are different. And now we're at where most of the adapters are in the 5 to 6 gram range. So the effect that it has on an overall driver design is very, very, very minimal. And then in terms of I always loved the line of, people talk about, I want mine glued versus an adapter or whatever. I forget who it was. This was years ago. Someone said, would you want your car glued together or screwed together? And it's like, you want it screwed together because it's a tighter connection. So the adapter world has become, it's so optimized right now.
Speaking of optimized, one of the things that we talk about is weight and weight savings with materials and composite materials for crowns of drivers now and a lot of other things. Why do we need a crown?
USGA kind of tells you need to. I mean,
in an ideal world, couldn't we remove it? I know there's some aerodynamic properties, but couldn't we remove it, slap some tungsten on the bottom, and have even a higher CG MOI driver?
You could. If you removed it, there's some structural rigidity that comes from that crown. Meaning, you just had a sole with a face like this, and you hit a high impact. There's going to be a large deflection here that's going to result in a lot of energy loss. Just having that crown here gives you rigidity there, where right now a high on a driver is a good place to contact it. So in terms of CG, you could probably do better than having a crown. Like, we're trying to save weight and keep it rigid, but you could do better by moving the center of gravity lower or deeper without a crown. But the overall performance across the face would suffer from that design.
And we're going to finish it up with this question because it's been a hot topic for you answering them on Twitter, and that is grooves. Now, if I'm looking at this, which is not a wedge, it's a 919 Tour, won a few majors, this club. Grooves on plated clubs there you go. You've made because people talk about rusting and things like that, and that a raw wedge will have sharper grooves. Mm-hmm. Hence, with sharper grooves, they can channel away more material and create more spin.
So the biggest thing to understand about grooves, the initial point of a groove is to channel away debris, to make sure you get consistent contact between the face and the ball. So when you start talking about irons, like you look at our JPX 919, the hot metal stuff, it's a cast-in groove. On the 919 Tour and Forge, those are a stamped-in groove. When you get into a wedge, as the loft increases, and thus you're getting more of a glancing blow, then you really want to try to see what you can do to get that shoulder to grab. If you're hitting it, call it 45 degrees with a little bit of shaft lean on a pitching wedge, you still are getting good contact between the face and the ball, and the groove geometry isn't going to have a big effect. When you get to 60 degrees and then you open that up to 65 degrees, then when you're really sliding across the ball, you need that groove, that shoulder to grab. So the difference between a raw versus a plated is basically once it's CNC milled, then a plating, it's dipped in a plating, and then that dip, in order to not rust and erode away, it's going to round off that shoulder slightly. So traditionally, a raw wedge will spin a little bit more because that plating hasn't rounded that shoulder. It's not that the rust is causing it. The rust is a byproduct that's just showing you that plating doesn't exist. So
now, I'm going to play your Mike Wilbon, pardon the interruption, argument here.
Okay.
Because I agree with everything you just said. However, for the non-tour pro that doesn't replace their wedges after every round, won't the raw wedge and the radius of the angle also wear down faster?
Yes. A plating is stronger than the standard material. So if you're not rotating your wedges at a regular basis, the chrome will help the life of that groove. So absolutely, I agree with that. So I would say if you want to go out and measure your very first shot with a plated or a raw, the raw will typically spin more.
Yeah, but 6 months later, it might be the other way. 6
months later, it's a totally different story. Particularly if you're down in Florida and you're hitting off ranges that are sandy and really, are going to wear down.
Now you're just making fun of me.
Say it again?
Now you're just making fun of me.
No, never.
We want to thank you for coming on. I'm sure all our readers, based on all these questions, feel the same way. We're going to have to do this again as we're both still in lockdown, although I'm sneaky suspicion someone's going to have to be going into work pretty soon.
It feels like it, but I'm actually been very productive at home. So the good thing is I don't have to wear a collared shirt and have to dress up. I
know if you guys saw this, he actually has no pants on, but we're going to make him stay below the camera.
I am representing the Falcons, so I got the Julio shirt going. So I look forward to Matt Ryan proving who's the elite quarterback in the SEC or in the NFC South.
Somebody else other than Matt Ryan by throwing a lot of interceptions. If you had a really good receiver other than Julio with arms like Patrick Ewing to catch all Matt Ryan's balls he throws into the turf, you'd be in great shape. We want to thank Chris for coming on. For everybody else.
No. You got me? I got a little.
Yeah, we still got you. Don't worry.
My internet didn't like whatever you were saying.
It does not like anybody making fun of Matt Ryan. But for everybody who tuned on, if you have other questions, post them in the forum thread. We will make sure they get answered. I can send them to Chris and he can jump in, or I can answer them for you based on his info. So for myself and Chris, we are signing off today. Thanks everybody for following along.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.